What happened in there? It seemed like to us a lot of shenanigans and kind of a waste of time.
Well, the rules of law apply to both sides. And our position was, as I stated in court, that when previous counsel who had sponsored Mr. Perez withdrew, so did his status, and that these attorneys had not followed the proper procedure under the rules of the Tennessee Supreme Court to have a hearing about whether they are properly sponsoring him and whether he should and could be allowed to participate as counsel. A lot of talk about Sixth Amendment, right to counsel. That is one of the most important rights, but it's not absolute if it's going to violate the ultimate defendant's rights, even with his consent, in cases such as an attorney being disqualified. Courts have ruled that what that results in is a new trial, that there are some instances where the Sixth Amendment right to counsel is not absolute, and that's all we want to be heard on that under the proper procedure and in the forum that we're in.
Now, motions have been filed saying that Perez tampered with evidence, destroyed evidence, was an unindicted co-conspirator. None of that came up today, and was that still on the table as to why he should be disqualified? It sounds like now the argument has changed.
Well, it is changed to the extent that it is now their burden to go forward with convincing the judge that he should be allowed to appear and represent Mr. Vandenberg in this case, as opposed to our motion to disqualify him. I think it's fair to say that the bottom line is still there about the reasons, and without going into any of the facts other than what's already in the record and what you know of, that we anticipate that that will be brought before the judge, and Judge Watkins will make a ruling after he's heard and considered what we have to present.
Are you comfortable with him being on the team if proper sponsorship is approved?
It's not the sponsorship. That's really not the issue. There's nothing. I mean, Mr. Herbison and Mr. Long are Tennessee lawyers. They qualify to sponsor anyone if that attorney is not in a position to essentially be a problem for appellate issues down the road. That's what we're protecting to the best of our ability, is Mr. Vandenberg's rights. I mean, we represent all of the people, including Mr. Vandenberg, and his right to a fair trial, and the state's right to a fair trial. And that's all we want to put on the table. And this was a procedural issue that came up, obviously was addressed, and Judge Watkins agreed with me, agreed with the state today, that Mr. Perez does not currently have a sponsor, and so they should file a motion and get on with it.
Once he gets a sponsor, will you then take up the other issues disqualification?
He has the sponsor. He has Mr. Long and Mr. Herbison, but they had not filed the motion to have that approved.
Say that motion is approved.
Well, the motion has to be filed, then we'll have a hearing on it. That's where the approval part would come in. That's the step that will be after the motion is filed, a hearing on that, and then it'll be up to the judge to determine whether it is approved or not. So it's just a step-by-step process. It's no different than what goes on in many other cases of procedurally following the rules as the Tennessee Supreme Court has enacted.
Right. Do you understand what I'm trying to, the nuance I'm trying to understand? If they get the sponsorship and the judge approves that, do you still feel or stand by the earlier motions that he tampered with evidence, should be disqualified, unindicted co-conspirator?
We'll address that at the hearing on the motion to have him admitted. And depending on how the judge rules, that will at least resolve that issue for the trial. The trial is still on schedule. We still are planning to go. As you heard me say, we welcome Mr. Long and Mr. Herbison to be the adversaries in this case. We certainly have a history with them. And I think if you check back on the results, you can see that what the history is.
What's that history?
Well, they seem to, shall we say, bring up Perry March and the Wooded Rapist, or it is brought up. Maybe they don't do it, but the media of their high-profile clients. I just say, where are they now?
All right, well said, sir. Thank you very much for your time. We most certainly appreciate it.
Okay.